The Bitcoin Group, the American original. For over the last 10 seconds, the sharpest Satoshis, the best Bitcoins, the hardest cryptocurrency talk. We'd like to welcome our panelists, Chris Ellis from World Crypto Network,
Hello.
Megan Lords from Bitcoin Not Bombs,
Thanks for having me.
Christoph Atlas from Anonymous Bitcoin Book,
Good to be here.
Will Pangman from Join Topeki,
Hi, everybody.
and I'm Thomas Hunt from Mad Bitcoins. Moving on to issue 1. New York Bitcoin Regulation, Week 2. It's been a week since Super Nintendo Losky first released New York State's draconian Bitcoin regulations. The 45-day minimum allowed by law review period has begun. Have you softened on the regulations, or are they still the worst thing since spilled milk? Chris Ellis.
Yeah, I haven't changed the way I feel about it one little bit, actually. Although I have been following this Coin Congress, which is the most ridiculous name ever for a Bitcoin meetup. And I was trolling earlier James Robinson from RRE Ventures, who said apparently you may not like banks, but you know that your money will be there tomorrow. And I just feel like people have such short-term memories. So I started tweeting out with the hashtag Cyprus. I started tweeting out old news stories from 2007 where people were like, bailing out the banks, as if people had, completely forgotten about that. So no, I mean, I don't really have much to report other than to say that I thought it was really interesting. The article that you're citing was by John Matonis of the Bitcoin Foundation, who goes on quite lengths to kind of have a go at the regulators, despite the fact that I thought that the Bitcoin Foundation was supposed to be pandering to the regulators, or I'm sorry, what was it? Educating them. And he even goes so far as to mention the Electronic Frontier Foundation's Tor Challenge, which is about encouraging people to set up Tor exit nodes to increase the level of security and anonymity across the Tor network. He goes on to mention Amir Tarki and Dark Wallet, even though Amir Tarki on Reddit, on the Bitcoin subreddit recently, started laying into Mike Hearn, one of the core Bitcoin developers. There was a whole kind of spat over Circle, the startup that has not yet answered questions about what information that it will be tracking about its users, and that really this is just a centralized version of Bitcoin. It's just PayPal all over again. So I find it very interesting. This is an interesting piece of politicking by the Bitcoin Foundation, for them to be flip-flopping and on the one hand kind of on the back channels having a go at people like Amir Tarki and trying to distance themselves from him, and then on the other hand when they write an article in CoinDesk they try to make it sound like, oh no, this is all cool and trendy, so we'll sort of make it look like we're really into it.
That's a good point on Congress, Chris. A friend of mine said he wasn't going to Coin Congress because they didn't allow anarchists there. And I was also reminded of, we started reading Snow Crash this week for the World Crypto Book Club. And in Snow Crash, in just the first 20 pages or so, it talks about how the Library of Congress merged with the Central Intelligence Agency, and then they released a stock offering. And that no one really knew what the word Congress meant anymore, so it didn't make any sense in the name. Megan Lords.
Yeah, my position on this hasn't really changed much. I think it's really negative in general. I think New York really jumped the gun on this, and I think it's really going to hurt them. I think it's going to probably backfire. And I thought the article on CoinDesk was interesting by John. Even when it comes to the foundation, I still like to maintain the idea that, the people who are writing that are part of the foundation are still individuals. I don't really think of it as like this monolithic group. I think you can still have some separation between the members of the Bitcoin Foundation and maybe what the Bitcoin Foundation is doing, some of the board members, for example, or, the people who are at the very top of it who are wanting to, do these lobbying the politicians and things like that. So, but other than that, yeah, I mean, I just think this is overall pretty bad news.
Megan's right on the Bitcoin Foundation not being united and being individuals. As sure we all recall, Brock Pierce now has his own altcoin, and he's on the Bitcoin Foundation board, the famous dollar-backed real coin. Christoph Atlas.
Yeah, I think that this whole regulatory thing in New York, it's going to play out one of two ways. One is that this virus of bullish regulation blocking Bitcoin businesses from doing what they need to do, it doesn't spread to other states, and in which case the people that live within New York, the entrepreneurs and so forth, the ones who do not flee, will be disadvantaged, and that will be a sad story for New York. The other possibility is that it does spread to other places, in which case they're going to be driving more and more of the markets into the underground. And I don't have any particular opinion about whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, but those are kind of the two ways that I see this playing out. And I think that there's this, there's this kind of like fake appealing to the public to ask for their opinion, and this kind of going through the motions of like, okay, well, now we have 45 days by law to wait and solicit the advice of the public, and then we'll just do whatever we feel like doing. And I think that's exactly what I expect to happen. They're not going to be, soliciting expert opinion or anything like that. If they had done that, then the proposal wouldn't have looked so completely ridiculous in the first place. So yeah, don't try to nuzzle up to the regulators. Don't end up like Charlie Shrem. Just go off and do your own thing. That would be my advice.
And remember, Lawsky's already done an AMA on Reddit. So they reached out to these people already and nothing changed. Will Pengman.
Yeah, the PR stunts like AMAs or articles or even hearings or even proposals where you're given the minimum amount of days to discuss the contents as opposed to the maximum, which is 365. So there's a big difference there, And I think it's pretty obvious to anyone who understands this technology that the proposal is completely untenable. However, if I were a regulator or some bureaucrat who stood to lose my entire purpose for work or being even due to a particular technology that black swans its way onto the scene, then I would want to set the bargaining as tightly as possible in my favor before negotiating from there. And that's, I think, what they did. Regulators are essentially, as this technology grows up and matures, going to be rendered inert, irrelevant, and that's the nature of this technology. That's really what it brings. So we're going to move more and more closely to that, and these folks on some superficial level are afraid of that, and they're aware of that on some superficial level. They obviously don't deeply understand it. Otherwise, they'd be trying to regulate aspects of this technology that go beyond the monetary use of this technology, which is something that their proposal explicitly does not talk about. It only talks about the monetary uses of this technology, which tells me it's incredibly short-sighted, and it's not going to go through in the incarnation it has at the moment. They'll be scaling back from there, but yeah, like Christoph said, they can essentially do whatever they want. They do have violence and use of force, the threat of force, on their side.
And it really is. I totally forgot what I was going to say. But I agreed with Christoph's point about it's starting to look like the Civil War, where the states are broken up into slave states and free states. And then to pick back up on Will's point, it is an existential threat for them. This is all or nothing for the regulators. This could be their entire world. So they do need to pay attention. They are certainly trying, and we could see a situation where other states start adopting similar laws to New York, and we have kind of a confederacy union type situation going on. Hopefully California will stay on the right track, having recently legalized cryptocurrencies, but we'll find out. Exit question. After 45 days, will they change anything? Will the final laws be unchanged? Chris Ellis.
No.
Megan Lords.
I think they'll be unchanged, and I also think that they're not going to protect the people that they say they're going to protect in the future.
Christoph Atlas.
Amir Taki, who was referenced in John Matanas' article as a developer for Dark Wallet, he recently posted to the Unsystem mailing list about this, and he compared Ben Lawsky to a kind of used car salesman who, at first, and when you get the car, you always get ripped off, right? But at first they give you some outrageously, high price, and then they go back to talk to their sales manager, which just means, like they go around the back of the building and have a smoke and come back. and then they give you a slightly lower thing, and they're like, oh, I'm getting such a good deal. So I guess he's sort of expecting that they're going to make it a little bit softer and less harsh on the Bitcoin related businesses there. Whether it changes or not, though, I think that it's time for Redditors in the Bitcoin space to admit to a little bit of shame on their part. Basically, what they've been allowing Ben Losky to do is to astroturf in the Reddit space, pretending that he is some kind of forward-thinking regulator, that he's a friend of the people, that he's soliciting feedback, that he's this nice guy with a great hairline and suit, and that couldn't be farther from the truth. And so it's time for Reddit to stop giving him a podium and treat him like the unelected official that he is.
It seems unfortunate. They're probably going to have to wait until it goes through and they get burnt before they can act that way. They're going to have to wait. Will Pengman.
Yeah, to echo what Christoph was saying there, that's what Bruce Fenton suggests in a really eloquent blog on the Fenton Report, his personal blog site. I encourage you to check it out, and also his recent talk from Chicago is buzzing around YouTube right now too. So, and that's a great talk too about this very subject. So, lots of inspiration there if you're wondering what you can do just sitting behind your computer. There's a lot you can do. So check that out and take some of that advice. But yeah, I mean, if Chris is right and they don't, and nothing changes, then they will be blacklisting themselves, and quite quickly. I don't see that as a penalty they want to take on. That would be, completely and obviously counter to what Ben Losky has been saying all along. It's just, I mean, politicians are disingenuous, bureaucrats as well. But to be so much so would get you outed, and that's not a risk they're willing to bear. So there will be some scaling back, like Amir suggests. But in the end, yeah, there's a lot we can do between now and then, and certainly Bitcoin is the opt-out technology. It allows us to opt out from these regulations. It's just going to be some more work and coding, to screen out New York State IP addresses or whatever you have to do. But people will vote with their feet, so to speak, on this, and we'll stop doing business with New York State IP addresses.
I gotta agree with the panel. The changes will be small and mostly cosmetic. It'll be mostly the same law, even after 45 days. Moving on, issue 2. Ethereum raised more than $4.5 million this week, pre-selling Ether, the coin that may one day allow you to make a smart contract, and much, much more. They're saying they've raised more than 6,500 Bitcoin so far, and they might have sold a few, which many are saying caused the recent price drop. Megan Lords, your thoughts on Ethereum?
So I had a lot of enthusiasm for Ethereum, just kind of hearing about its potential in the last few months. But I started kind of looking into it more, and when they were saying that Ether was for sale, I was reading through the website, and I noticed they have a lot of legal cover your ass stuff, and we kind of discussed this on Twitter a bit. And Brian Sovereign pointed this out too, that one of the things it says is the Genesis block may or may not be released. This may or may not happen, which I understand is I think it's legal. They're obviously being very careful legally with what they're doing, which is a good thing. But I'm kind of going to hold off for a while. I kind of want to wait and see what happens with things. And I guess I just have to be skeptical about it. When I see a lot of enthusiasm behind a project, I sometimes get caught up in it, but then I also find myself stepping back and trying to reevaluate. And with Bitcoin, I think that kind of burned me on a personal level. When I first heard about it, I was maybe almost too skeptical against it, and obviously I didn't, jump in as soon as I probably should have. But with this one, I think I'm just gonna wait it out and see. I still need to do a little more research on it. I think Vitalik is great. I've talked with him on a few occasions, and some of the other developers too. I think they're really awesome people. I think they have their heads in the right spot. But I just kind of have to be a bit hesitant for now about it.
Christoph, Atlas.
Yeah, Ethereum's very interesting. And it's interesting that Megan brought up Bitcoin, right? Because I think that's the example that's all in our minds. If you invested $1,000 at Bitcoin at the right time and held on to it, then you're a fucking king now, right? And so people are thinking like, okay, Ethereum, this is like my next big chance. That's what they're looking to do here by speculating in Ether. I looked at the blockchain, and they have a hefty amount of Bitcoin that they've accrued so far. The average amount of Bitcoin that's being spent is about 3 Bitcoins. I saw a lot of transactions that were right around 1 Bitcoin. People said, yeah, 1,000 Ether, that's a nice big round number. And so what the heck? I've got a bunch of other Bitcoins. I may as well throw one at this speculative opportunity. And sort of my advice to people is like, be careful about the comparison between Bitcoin and Ethereum. First of all, it's a little bit like buying casino chips for a casino that actually hasn't been built yet. It doesn't exist yet, and as Megan pointed out, like they have this legal CYA language about, well, the blockchain may never be launched, etc. So I would definitely, have some caution around that. I think if you're not investing because you like really, really understand the fundamental technology, how difficult it's going to be for other people to launch competing versions of Ethereum, given that it is an open source piece of software. If you're not familiar with some of the criticisms and challenges that have come up for the Ethereum team based on their economic analysis as opposed to their cryptographic analysis and understanding, I think they're much better cryptographers than economists by a long shot. And you need to do both in order for a coin to be successful in the long term. So if you're not doing that, then you really should only be buying Ether if you consider it to be a donation that could potentially be rewarding to you in the future. But you shouldn't, be banking on that. It's not like investing in some kind of really safe asset. And there's no clear indication that it is going to be the next Bitcoin in terms of speculations.
That's a great point on the casino, Christoph, because I'm not even sure what the Ether coins are. Like, are they a contract a piece? Are they 100 contracts a piece? Are they 1,000 contracts a coin? Like, how many contracts am I going to need? And again, there's other things other than contracts I know, but I don't know any of those things yet because it hasn't been built yet. So it's really hard to invest. Will Pangman.
Yeah, I agree with pretty much everything Christoph said. That was a lot of my thoughts as well. The fundraising has been pretty impressive early on. I think in 12 hours they raised $750,000. That's incredibly impressive. So there's demand in the market for technology that can do what Ethereum hopes or claims it wants to do. Again, I've been a big fan since the very earliest days, like in December, of learning about this project and watching it very closely all along. It's kind of been a bit of a roller coaster ride, like Megan was talking about, and I'm going to wait until there's a blockchain. I'm going to wait until there's some code I can play with, and then maybe we'll buy some Ethers, and I'll happily take, if I want to play with it, I'm going to pay to use it, so I'll happily take the reduced rate or the increased rate at that point. So yeah, I don't think it's good idea to invest too much money into things that aren't there yet.
Chris Ellis.
I think the only reason you should be buying Ether right now is if you're a programmer and you actually plan on writing a contract that will therefore rely on your code running. I think it's never a good idea to buy something when everyone else is, and it looks like a lot of people are just buying a speculation. Ethereum have put way too much time and energy into publicizing their products before they've actually got the rubber hitting the road and actually writing it. They should have left this until October, until 2 months away until the release, because 6 months until it's released, I mean, they're saying winter of this coming winter, so it could be February next year, is an absolute eternity in this space. You're crazy to spend bitcoins on something that far ahead. So no, I think it was very good that Christoph went through the blockchain. 3 bitcoins on average is far too high. People are going crazy. They're overspending because they're desperate and they're living on a hope and a prayer.
We'll just have to wait and see. Exit question: Ethereum, buy, sell, or wait? Megan Lords.
Well, I don't have very many Bitcoin to spend at the moment, too. So I'm hoping to see, a little bit of a price increase with Bitcoin, and then I also have to look more into Ethereum just in general. So yeah, I'm waiting. Like the other panelists said, I'd like to see some more information coming out about the progress of the project too. Saying that it's going to be released in winter is just so vague, and yeah, I just get a kind of not the best feeling about it, I guess.
Christoph, Atlas.
Yeah, well, you can't sell once you buy the Ethereum. They're tied to your Ethereum account, right? So you'd have to somehow get someone to trust that you can transfer your Ethereum account to them or whatever. I'm not calling it a buy right now, and keep in mind that as the Bitcoin price fluctuates for the remainder of the year, they're trying to put this early buy-in pressure onto people by saying, like, well, if you do it in the first 14 days, then you get a special price, and then it goes up 30% after that. But we don't know what's going to happen to the Bitcoin price in the meantime. So these are all relative, and even if you're a speculator, definitely do your homework on that. Don't get the used car salesman pressure into to buying Ether right now, because you're panicked that you're going to lose 30% of your future value if you don't.
Will Pangman.
By the idea, by Vitalik's vision, by even the leadership so far guiding the project, even though there's no product just yet. I'm going to wait on throwing any hard digital money at it, though.
Chris Ellis.
That's a good point. A lot of people have mentioned that the team behind this are really, really smart, and being smart is no indication of being right or being a morally decent person. So I'm going to say no, I'm not buying.
And again, this is much like MadeSafe, where I thought the idea was great, but I didn't buy into the pre-sale because I don't understand how to evaluate that kind of a thing. And Christoph makes a good point about it being non-transferable. That's a big issue. If you decide that you need that money that you put in the Bitcoin that's in the in Ethereum coin, you can't get that back out. It's stuck there until this product comes out or some kind of market forms. It's a very confusing and strange, very early investment to buy. And Chris makes a good point as well that if everyone else is buying it, you're just a lemming joining them. So, moving on, issue 3. Kanye West sues Coinye altcoin into oblivion. In a move that many are calling Kanye West's Napster Metallica moment, Kanye and his gang of lawyers have successfully killed Coinye. Is it a good thing that an artist can kill an open source project that shares a sound alike of his name? Christoph, Atlas.
Well, this is why we need the Kanye Nakamoto, right? This is why you adopt your pseudonym when you launch your joke coin, is because you don't want to get sued. And I think that's maybe one of the chief lessons here, is that even though we're transitioning into this new crypto economy, we're still stuck in this legacy system and with all of its baggage. And so you need to change your drizzles whenever possible.
Will Pangman.
This is just too good, right? He's done this so many times before, walking out of award shows, numerous award shows. If he didn't win the award, he's done it time and time again. He's gone after people who've used his likeness in a number of things prior to just Coinye or Kanye West coin and all the iterations that it had. I'm sure that he can probably go after it because it shares his likeness and whatever. But this must be what Brave the World means when she describes a basic Bitcoin bitch. That's gotta be Kanye West in this case.
He definitely doesn't get it. Chris Ellis.
So it's not dead, and the coin is still going. You can't shut down a distributed blockchain, but here is a copy of some of the paperwork that the founders were sent. And I don't know if it's coming up on your screen very well, because even on mine it looks pretty small. But it's basically this line here on section 35, where it says, as a result of Mr. West's extensive sales, advertising and promotional efforts, and his consistent production of high-quality goods and services, the Kanye West mark is famous and has garnered goodwill of incalculable value. The Kanye West mark is recognized and relied upon by a consuming public, as indicating one source, Mr. West. And then here in section 51, it's like, the infringing website features coins that will resemble Mr. West wearing his signature shutter shade sunglasses below the Coinye mark. And further, Mr. West will suffer irreparable harm because of the use of Coinye West. Coinye or Kanye or Koi marks dilutes and disincentivizes distinctiveness of the famous Kanye West marks. This is all about protection and control. He wants to own it. And I used to work in the film industry, and I was constantly surrounded by these egos. I mean, the egos were actually bigger than the people. The ego would arrive on set before the celebrity would get there. It was like a weird time dilation thing going on. And what happens is they start off their careers, these celebrities, as kind of humble and kiss ass, and they're, you know, constantly trying to suck up. And then after a while, they start to get a little bit of luxury, and people start bringing them coffee, and they get used to it. And it's like they're getting locked in each time. They're being led into a trapdoor, and they just progressively become more and more of an arsehole, to the point where if they get demoted, or if they have to fly economy premium class or something like that, they start throwing these hissy fits. And I was on set with someone very famous that I'm not allowed to say their name because I signed a contract saying I was never allowed to say anything bad about that whole estate ever again. But this person turns up at this film shoot surrounded by an entourage of people. This celebrity is a really, really nice person. Like, I've met them and I've worked with them quite a lot, but they are a megastar, like an international megastar. And I was told that like every minute of this person's time was worth something like $30,000 US. So we had to photograph this person on stage, and their lawyers and their people were kicking the producer, like, pushing them and saying, we've got to go, we've got to go. It's always, they've got to get a flight. They've got to get a flight. And so they're surrounded by yes people that end up inflating that person. Sometimes the person themselves are okay people, and maybe they're just a bit spoilt and a bit up to themselves. But a lot of the time, they end up building this microeconomy and this people around them that need that person to be famous in order to have their jobs maintained. And so they often, I don't know if this is true about Coinye, but I certainly saw a lot of celebrities would end up, you're not even dealing with the person anymore, you're dealing with all the people around them that need that person to be big and famous in order for their salaries to get paid. So there might be an element of that here with the lawyers.
Megan, Lord.
I'm going to let you finish, Tom, but I found the best Kanye West generator today while researching the story, and I think it goes to Chris's point, or to the legal documents to show the value of Kanye West. So what I'm going to use as my response is just, it's called "Give Me More Kanye-fidence." So I'm just going to read some quotes from the man himself. "I'm like a vessel, and God has chosen me to be the voice and the connector. My music isn't just music, it's medicine." And these are real quotes, by the way. "Don't ask me what I think the best song of my last year was, because my opinion is the same as most of America's. It was Gold Digger. Everything. I'm not made me everything. I'm not made me everything I am. In my humble opinion, that's a prophetic statement. Gandhi would have said something like that." Okay, I think we can do one more. Okay, no, let's see. Oh, this is great. "When I think of competition, it's like I try to create against the past. I think about Michelangelo and Picasso, the pyramids. So I just want to take this opportunity to make fun of Kanye West because this is great. And Coinye, I don't know what was going through their minds when, they were creating this coin. I don't know if it was just a joke, but I hope they don't lose too much, money fighting this giant egomaniac. So that's all I'm going to say about that.
Michelangelo, Picasso, the pyramids. Yeah, that's good stuff. Moving on. World Crypto Network now has its own Reddit. That's right. Check out the brand new World Crypto Network Reddit, where we're planning to decentralize the world by making World Crypto Network into a distributed, autonomous organization. We're going to need your help at reddit.com/r/World Crypto Network. Moving on, issue 4, Grab Bag, Choose Your Own Story. Ecuador, who famously uses the US dollar as its national currency, is going the other way with Bitcoin, banning it and planning to create a government-run digital currency. The Mt. Gox story just won't die, as Mt. Gox trustees leave the door open to a revival of the failed Bitcoin exchange. And Jackson Palmer, the Dogecoin creator who famously left but didn't leave his cryptocurrency, gave an interview to Cointelegraph where he said that Doge is all about fun, and when it gets too serious about legal issues or people getting rich off crypto, he says, peace out, and moves on to something worth his time. Will Pengman, choose your own story.
I had a good one and it just slipped my mind. It's not one of the options, so can I pass and go last?
All right, Chris, choose your own story.
Right, I'm going to go with the Decentralize the World initiative. That was a really good suggestion by you, Tom. Of course, it's the most important thing that's going on in the world right now, is this idea to start getting open source hardware and airdropping it on regions of the world that are in dire need of innovation and financial support. And it turns out, and we didn't even know this, that we actually do have viewers as far afield as Thailand, Nepal, Borneo, South America, Venezuela, places like that, people who do manage to watch us here on the World Crypto Network, and quite a number of people have been commenting on this thread, which is on our World Crypto Network. And so I just laid out a basic template. I did a lot of research. I read through a lot of Nick Szabo's old posts on the smart contracts. I watched through some videos of BitShares and people like that propose the DAC. And what I noticed is no one's actually doing it yet, not properly. I've yet to really come up with a good definition of what a distributed autonomous organization really is and what it should look like. I only see a lot of talk. So I say we can do it right now. We can do it right now with Bitcoin Armory Wallet, which is open source Bitcoin client. It can run as in an offline mode in a light way, but I would prefer it if the people that got involved would all sort of run full nodes. It's also a very good idea because we'd be breaking the ground. When we actually come up with this, we'll probably be running into some problems. We'll be making a lot of those discoveries. We're already, good people with good reputations. We've been doing these videos for a year now. So I think we built up a lot of goodwill, and we're noticing a lot of people coming out of the woodwork here in this thread, Tom. A lot of people are coming out saying, look, I've been watching your shows for ages. I think this is a really good idea. I just want to get involved. And I think the beauty of it is that we don't really have an agenda. Like we're not pushing a coin. We're not here to make the price of anything go up, right? We're just here to try and be decent people.
We're not trying to protect the World Crypto Network mark or the incalculable value of the World Crypto Network logo and
exactly. So we're not control freaks, and what I've suggested is we have a combination of voting and what's called sortition, so that the person in charge of the funds, the custodian, is randomly selected from, I'm suggesting 7 people, and then that way any would-be psychopath or control freak will self-deselect at the door, because a control freak wants control now. By definition, they don't want to leave it to chance. So please get involved and have your say. I'm also proposing, and maybe we can answer this right now, we should have a town hall style meeting on YouTube where people get to turn up, like basically a mega thread, like this, like all the stuff we do already with a Q&A at the end of this show. We should do that in like a really big way and do some build up. Do like 2 weeks of build up on Twitter. We tweet it out every day. Get as many people around the world to know about it. Maybe this could be like a pilot of our conference, something like that. 2 weeks time, are you guys around?
Yeah. And we still need to work on the virtual Bitcoin conference that had, or virtual crypto.
Well, let's make this one like a pilot of that. Let's try doing it for like, I don't know, 6 hours or something. We don't all have to be here for the full 6 hours, but I want to make sure that every time zone gets involved, because we need to almost invent a World Crypto Network time zone. Maybe we need to like have the Bitcoin clock embedded on our website, so we actually tell the time by block height. That's what we do. And so like our shows will start being at like block height 3,120, whatever, No, that's probably not a good idea.
No, it actually is a genius idea. Let's just get off the Gregorian calendar and go by block height down.
I don't want to dominate this discussion.
Did the meeting start 30 minutes ago, or, oh, shoot, I was going off of this particular chain, but then it got orphaned, and, all right, guys.
Well, I'm not late for this date. There was a fork. There was a
The
series of 4 or 5 clocks.
astronomers use sidereal time. The way astronomers get around it is by using sidereal time, where they measure the Earth's rotation by the most distant star in the sky. But anyway, we can discuss all of that. But yeah, I do suggest we get as many of the stakeholders involved as possible so that everyone gets their views expressed. Everyone here and anybody who wants to get involved, please download Bitcoin Armory at bitcoinarmory.com. Download your copy, even if you don't have a full node like a Satoshi wallet running in the background. Doesn't matter, it still works offline. You can still generate a public address, send me or put it on Reddit your full raw key, and then we can start making multi-sig wallets between ourselves and starting projects straight away, just in like a beta fashion.
Megan Lords.
So I'm really excited about the World Crypto DAO. That's really awesome. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how that develops. I will comment on some of the other stories. I don't know that I can pick one, kind of story. The Mount Gox one I think is the most insane though. I just really, that seems like such a bad idea. I mean, that's like appallingly bad. I mean, that's like trusting Bernie Madoff with your money again, or I mean, Mt. Gox with your Bitcoin again. It just doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me. I don't know. I think that's bad. And then also the Ecuador story is kind of interesting. I think that's pretty unfortunate also. I've always viewed Bitcoin as a way for other people to get off of the dollar as a world reserve currency, and this kind of seems like they're kind of going in the opposite direction. So I'm wondering if maybe maybe they might be developing their own currency of some kind, maybe another digital type currency or something. Maybe we just don't know about it, but that's just kind of speculation, and I don't know that that's the best move for Ecuador right now.
Well, they've said they're trying to develop their own currency, but it just won't work with any of our existing cryptocurrencies, and we don't know how good their programmers are or any of those other things.
Mm.
And the Mt. Gox story, it's just very sad. These people lost their money in a corrupt business, and their idea to get their money back is to keep this corrupt business running, and we could get some fees off of that, and everyone would come back to this corrupt business and give them their money again and their trust, which seems madness. And just the general idea that, yeah, after the Madoff scandal, we could have just reopened his business, put up some more big fake loans, and try to reinflate the whole thing. But they did kind of do that after the mortgage scandal. So I guess it's just Mt. Gox was too small, so they were able to fail. So.
Right. But, yeah.
Christoph, Atlas.
Well, I think Ecuador being interested in highly centralized digital currencies is good news for some. So when Circle goes under, Jeremy Allaire, he could try to relaunch the business in Ecuador, perhaps, and I think that would be, a second chance for him.
All right, Will Pangman, are you back with a story?
Yeah, I'm back. So I'm going to go off the map and talk about the St. Petersburg Bitcoin Bowl. So the day after Christmas in Tampa, well, St. Petersburg, Florida, at Tropicana Field, where the Tampa Bay Devil Rays, that's a baseball team, where they play. That's where the bowl game will be. And I know BitPay is already on the ground here because I'm in the Tampa area right now, and I was at the Tampa meetup last night, and it was great fun. Lots of really active people in the space, lots of men and women at this meetup, so that was cool. And everybody's really interested in getting merchant adoption off in St. Petersburg, which is a town that is ripe for Bitcoin adoption among merchants. There's lots of small artisan shops. It's a really great town, and it's a big city, but it has this town feel, and it's going to be really neat if they can get a fully realized Bitcoin ecosystem off and running leading up to the holiday season, which will, there's all kinds of incentives and ad opportunities. I know that ESPN and BitPay are working closely together on lots of Bitcoin branding opportunities and ad placement opportunities. So this is really interesting. I mean, I think they saw the power of what Bitcoin could do when a new human behavior burst onto the scene on College Game Day last year with the kid who held up the sign, "Hey Mom, send money," and had a Bitcoin logo and his public key QR code, and people sent him like 24 grand in the course of the day, just by freezing their DVRs and sending him Bitcoins through the internet from all over. So that's exciting to me. I'm don't know how long I'll stay in Florida, but it's hard. It's hard to leave. It's so beautiful here, and I know Megan can speak to this. I don't know if I'll be leaving all as abruptly as I thought I was, but I'd like to stick around and help merchant adoption take off. I had a lot of success and a lot of fun with that in Wisconsin, and love to do that down here at a place that's ripe for it.
Moving on to questions and answers. There's still a chance if you want to get your question in, and we might answer it. The first question is from Silver Miner. How much Ether do you need to execute a contract? No one knows. Great investment. Cyborg.org says, I've seen it time and time again. If the developers aren't upfront and active, the coin fails. Too vague at the moment for sure. And he or she's got a good point here that a lot of the other altcoins, Next, Blackcoin, Darkcoin, have just went ahead and launched. They didn't have to do a pre-sale like Ethereum or MadeSafe Coin. They just directly launched. And a lot of people are probably questioning why Ethereum can't just wait a couple months and launch.
Well, I have some ideas on that, and this is total,
they need money, sure.
Total guess. I think they need money, but I think also there's the reason for the sort of empty promise, the disclaimer, is kind of because of the shady legal standing of what they're really trying to do. I mean, think about what they're trying to do. If you understand what Ethereum seeks to accomplish and the kind of disruption that will cause, this is what Ben Losky is afraid of with Bitcoin, and only superficially so. Like, they still don't realize that Bitcoin is an absolute existential threat to them. They just see it as a threat. It's a $6 billion market cap or so, and they just see it as some really, big nuisance. And Ethereum is much, much more of a nuisance for this whole, as I like to say, the powers that shouldn't be. So I think there's some FEC, SEC kind of like issues that they don't know. Nothing's clear, and so they're not going to commit to actually launching anything yet until that's more clear for them, even though they're in Switzerland.
Until we're all in Switzerland. Timmy B writes, wouldn't it be better if there was more than one type of bit license? For example, a standard one under Losky's turn, an open license where the only term is that you have to tell people that you don't have a standard license. I mean, go ahead, Megan.
Sorry, comment to that. Bitcoin Not Bombs will be issuing bit licenses for those who are interested that pretty much say the opposite of the bit license of New York, which is that you don't need a license. But we're working on making some of those for people who are interested. I think it kind of goes along with what the commenter was saying.
I saw one of those on Facebook. It was a very expansive bit license. I was granted a lot of rights after that. Christoph, do you have thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think that does make quite a bit of sense. It's a very broad brush that they're attempting to paint with, and frankly, they're attempting to take every kind of business that hasn't even been invented yet, that is not even a twinkle in the eye of Ben Losky, and put it into one category. It's just mind-boggling. The idea that you would take this approach to trying to get businesses to do right by their customers is just a completely crazy idea, but it just doesn't seem crazy to us because we're inundated with people that do this all over the world.
And remember, Losky lives in a world where the banks have never ripped people off. They've never done the subprime mortgage scandal. The savings and loan crisis never happened. None of these existing systems have ever ripped off their customers. It's only this newcomer, this strange new Bitcoin that could rip people off. The old system is totally safe.
Well, if you can imagine this, Ben Losky actually fancies himself as some kind of like a gunslinger, sheriff in town against the banks, because he held a couple banks their feet lightly to the fire over some money laundering stuff. So he, in his maniac mind, he actually thinks that he can actually keep these bankers under his thumb, and it's a crazy thought.
I'd love to see a list of his favorite films. I'm predicting all Clint Eastwood films, Dirty Harry, Pale Rider, that kind of stuff. The Man Alone comes into the town, fix things up. So, I remember George W. Bush, his favorite movie was a Clint Eastwood type Western film, Silverado or something like that. But we've got some more questions. The cyborg.org says, I agree with Mr. Chris Ellis. A great base to start. Let me know how I can help. So the first thing we'd say on helping is definitely sign up for the World Crypto Network Reddit at reddit.com/r/World Crypto Network. We're going to discuss everything on there. As usual, we're going to try to be as open and transparent as possible with these ideas. So if something does develop, you'll hear about it there, or it'll even be suggested, discussed, and developed there. So we're very open. Let's see. Silverminer asks, what do you think about the new pros and cons of the new gold-backed coins, INN coin and Goldfish? Well, this is the first time hearing them. I'm sure they're similar to Real Coin, or there was a gold coin that was coming out of Las Vegas, something from people that actually own vaults full of gold. That sounded like a good idea, the vault business. You've already got the gold there. These other people, the obvious question is, where are they holding the gold, and can we count it? Can we look at it on a video camera? If we can't, what are you really buying?
Forget that. The real question is, can you prevent it from being stolen or confiscated? And the answer is no. You can't prevent it from being stolen or confiscated 100%, without any risk. And that's what's needed for some idea like this to survive. And I understand why people try to do these projects. They have it in their head that something digital just has to be backed by something tangible, physical. And they don't understand the cryptography clearly, that, what Satoshi gave us was hard digital money. Cryptographically proven money. That's good enough, and that's way better than having something in the physical space. That's the reason Bitcoin has all the incredible superpowers as traits that it has. So, it's sad that these gold-backed. I mean, don't these people? I don't want to be so hard on them because I understand why people do this, but E-Gold, Liberty Reserve, Liberty Dollar. There's like 5 other examples you could list. All they need to do is decapitate the business, and it's over. And if you want to start a business, you want that $1 billion market cap. You want that $1 billion worth of valuation eventually if you're a startup. And you know what happens when you get this $1 billion valuation with a business attached to gold that isn't, that's trying to do digital money in whatever way. All of these examples I just listed, they know what happens when they do $1 billion worth of business. That's what happens. So this is what we're seeing. We're seeing first they laugh at you, then first they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you. We're in the fight you stage now, right? And you're going to get, if you get that $1 billion, you're going to get the fight you. And Bitcoin's at 6 billion, and we're seeing like how robust the system is. And I understand why people do these altcoins, but trying to protect this whatever resource that you're backing your currency with from confiscation is a fool's errand.
Yeah, and to add on to Will's point, I mean, like he said, this happened with Bernard von Nothaus and a bunch of people who've tried to start their own alternative currencies that are backed by silver or gold. All it takes is them finding out where you're holding your silver or gold and confiscating it. And then there's also the trust issues. You have to trust this third party to be doing their books correctly and being honest with you that this is actually backed by what they say it's backed by and that they're able to even secure it. So Bitcoin solves a lot of these problems. And this is a step backwards to do that. And I understand why some people would want that. I mean, I understand where a lot of these people are coming from. I mean, I work at a brokerage firm, but whenever I try to talk to someone about Bitcoin who are already very much into gold and silver, you get these same kind of, arguments and stuff like that. So I understand it's very hard for them to shift their mindset. It's very, very difficult, so I understand where they're coming from, but Bitcoin has solved a lot of these problems so far as far as trust and then having a physical location where something can be confiscated. So I view it as a step backwards.
Exactly. I mean, this is like, you need violence to secure a hoard of resources in a vault. You need the threat of violence. You need heavy physical security, and that requires the threat of force. And Bitcoin frees us from that problem. So yeah, we're like used to physical security as human beings for 20,000 or more years, but now, and we're very new to digital security or net security, but this is, you know, this is the future, right? And people just haven't grasped yet. They think it's a cool way to do shopping or payments. It's much, much more than that, people. You know, it frees us from this violence, all these strategies of violence that were necessary in our ancestry.
Well, it's like Christoph said in his speech, the current system exists on proof of violence, the POV. And as Tim says in the comments, I buy Bitcoin because it isn't gold. So exactly, you've got to differentiate. If you want to buy gold, buy gold. Don't buy chips for gold just because they're Bitcoin chips and you think
You should
they're
have both. In a good portfolio, you should have diversity. So a good portfolio should have both.
Yep, and it's hard to, I don't know, it's so hard to get into a new altcoin these days. They all seem to be pump and dumps. Even if they're not intentionally that way, someone from the outside comes in, pumps it and dumps it because they want to make money, and it's an open and free, unregulated market. Also, all of the coins seem to be running in these themes, these kind of sequel coins. You know, Dark Coin does really good, so then everyone wants to be anonymous. Vert Coin does really good, everyone wants to beat the ASICs. We all just the same ideas over and over again. So it's really, I mean, the altcoin space is the marketplace, the laboratory of democracy. But that doesn't mean that you have to invest your money in the laboratory. We can just let these experiments go on. We don't necessarily have to be involved to properly test them. Enough other people will test them and, unfortunately, probably lose their money. Or maybe make a lot of money. I don't know,
Yeah, that said,
Yeah,
I mean,
if you want to buy gold.
Anyone who wants to, you know, support the World Crypto Network with their altcoin and have us help, you know, get them out there. I mean, I think that's a good idea. That's one way I would dip my toes in. If I could lend my, you know, if I believed in the ideas behind the project and you know there was some symbiosis there, I'd pimp some altcoins, you know, just to help them bootstrap their network, because that's the biggest hurdle to overcome. And let's see more of these experiments have a chance of reaching maturity. That's what I'd like to see.
Megan, go ahead.
Yeah, and you're better off just buying gold if you want a gold-backed currency. I don't know why you would need that extra level in there. Just buy the gold, and this is for the same reason we advise against buying the paper gold contracts and paper silver contracts too. I mean, you're not holding it physically in your hand. So yeah, it just seems like an unnecessary layer to add on top of a gold investment, or if you're into cryptocurrency, to add that as a feature of a cryptocurrency. It's unnecessary.
And it really does seem the only people who really would need to buy a gold coin are people who are going to buy like a vault worth of gold. If you're buying a reasonable, normal amount of gold, you can put it under your bed, put it in a safe, put it in a safe deposit box, whatever the normal safeguards are with gold. You're probably not buying that much space-wise that you would need a whole crypto coin and all these things to keep track of it. So. We've got another comment from cyborg.org. He says, crypto will outlast anything from Kanye. In the end, those tactics leave a bad taste in people's mouths. Weak on his part. And I agree. We've also got a great comment from the same guy. He says he'd like to hear some comments on Perry-Ann Boring's comments at the National or North American Bitcoin Conference on the next 18 months will determine the fate of Bitcoin. And the commenter says that he can't believe that anyone could truly predict the Bitcoin environment. But it seems that she's mainly talking about regulations, and I think she's also trying to focus us. She's trying to get us into a zone where over the next 18 months, if you're interested in Bitcoin and you've ever wanted to write your senator, this is your time. If you're interested in Bitcoin, you ever wanted to write Losky, try to change his mind, or maybe just write open letters, be more public with your correspondence, try to reach a larger audience, this is the time. So Bitcoin's going to be presumably badly regulated, then it's going to survive these regulations, then they're going to have to change them. Of course, it would be a lot easier if we could just regulate it properly and reasonably on the first try, and then try to change those regulations.
You know what would be really good is if we distribute the blockchain all over the world so it gets harder and harder to fork the damn thing without consensus from more stakeholders. That would be a great idea.
You don't think that we should start refunding transactions like Vericoin?
Yeah, well, that's the whole point. You can't do that because it wouldn't be centralized enough.
Megan?
To his comments about Perry Ann, she's in DC. I think she probably has a lot of insider knowledge of what the DC and the regulation crowd is thinking on this. She's also launching, if I'm not mistaken, I believe she's launching her own lobbying group to kind of get on the positive side of the regulators. That's not the tactic that I prefer to do, but I think what Perry Ann probably means in the next 18 months will kind of determine the future. I think she's going to be strongly working on this efforts to kind of build these bridges and try to hopefully not have the regulators come down too harshly on Bitcoin. Like I said, it's not a strategy that I like to be involved in, but she obviously has a better understanding of the environment in DC and how to talk to people about Bitcoin too. So I think that's really what, like you said, Thomas, I think that's really what she's talking about when she says, the fate of Bitcoin. From a regulatory stance, Bitcoin is going to survive no matter what regulations are put on it, I think, though.
It's not the fate of Bitcoin, it's the fate of, let's say, the United States,
it's a legal environment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Whether we all have to leave the country immediately or whether we can hang on for a few more years, pretty much.
You can come stay with me.
The last the last part of that little phrase, where that stage we're at, first they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, then you win. Then you win. It's gonna win. Bitcoin's gonna win. These regulations are untenable. They can't enforce them even if they tried. They're just gonna scare people out of using it. It might make the work that we are all doing a little harder. But again, there are needs in the market right now for point groups or point men, point people like Perry Ann and her Digital Chamber of Commerce and the foundation and whatever. And if they can do anything effectively, they can distract these folks enough with attempts to agree on regulation while, Unsystem develops their projects, while Darkcoin and their teams develop their projects, while Next gets going more with their projects, while more projects hit the ground, while Ethereum hits the ground. And, that's some kind of way that these two camps can work together without even knowing it, maybe. I think maybe they should know it, and they should maybe kind of quietly coordinate.
Yeah, it's a diversity of tactics kind of thing. You hope that there are people working kind of outside the system, and then there are people trying to do the inside. You kind of hope that the people trying to work with the regulators are doing what Will said, where they're trying to stave them off and give other people more time. We'll see what happens, though.
I have a slightly different point of view, which is that I suspect this woman is trying to build up confidence in her ability and fear within people in the Bitcoin space that if they don't fork over some money to her, that somehow they'll be worse off down the road. So I think it's a play to scare people into giving her money so that she can go down to Capitol Hill and do whatever she's going to do. Keep in mind, though, that lobbyists ultimately, there's no contract, there's no responsibility, there's no culpability, so she can be taking money from people in the Bitcoin space, she can be taking money from politicians on the other side or a bank or whoever, and ultimately lobbyists are susceptible to whoever the highest bidder is. And I have a hard time believing that at this point the Bitcoiners can be the highest bidder. I just don't think they simply have generated enough wealth at this point to think that the legacy banking system has quite a leg up in that circumstance. So I don't pay much attention to such people.
If I were a wealthy Bitcoin investor, I would consider funding someone with the requisite experience to put out some form letters that could be easily signed digitally or emailed quickly digitally by all of these keyboard warriors we have in the Bitcoin community. If they could do that, do something as a template for action that allows people to quickly and easily opt in if their ideals align, there'd be 100,000, 200,000 or more signees of such a thing, and efforts like that. Again, one thing they can do is they can show that the attempt to have a public dialogue was made on the part of the community, and the theater on the part of the establishment per se is much more obvious in that case if they totally disregard it. And so that can be to the advantage. I mean, this is why more and more people are opting for live YouTube channel shows instead of cable these days, because this is what's meeting their needs. You know, they're finding the quality content somewhere, and they're starting to see through the BS. So the efforts like that do have the effect of instilling confidence into people who are willing to jump over the fence, you know, into the camp of like truth-seeking or just having good, solid doubt.
Christoph brings up a good point that lobbying is like advertising. There is really no way to know if you're successful or not. And to Megan's point, she has started her own group. She approached the Bitcoin Foundation, but they told her to kind of do her own thing. And unfortunately, it's called the Chamber of Digital Commerce, or CDC, which we all know as Center for Disease Control. So I don't know why they chose that.
I want to make a remark about this idea of political action. And I find that people who support the idea of a political action of campaigns or mailing lists or whatever it is, they continue to move the bar whenever you criticize a particular goal of it. So, you know, either you're actually trying to convince the people that are making the laws, or you're trying to put pressure on them so that they know that the constituents in their particular area are going to possibly vote them out of office or something like that. There simply is not enough people who give a damn about Bitcoin to vote anyone out of office over Bitcoin. There's not enough people, and you know, frankly, by the time we have enough people that care that much about Bitcoin, I don't know that it would be any longer useful to try and petition those kind of politicians. So I don't really understand the purpose of that in terms of building awareness. I don't understand the goal of using the political arena as a place to try and gather awareness when there are lots of other places that you can try to do that.
I completely agree. It's a multi-pronged strategy. The reason that it's important to function in that arena as well, if people are willing to do that, you know, is because you can change minds, and also it's not just it's not empty. There's a brain drain that will happen if, you know, there's just no way to have any voice anymore. All of us know that the brightest minds in the world are working on projects around this space, and they're not going to, you know, work in the US if they can't. They're going to continue to work on these projects, and they'll go elsewhere. And this will be much more obvious than it has been in the previous decade and a half, when we've seen unprecedented brain drain from the US already.
And to your point about your analogy about people starting their own YouTube shows and people switching from cable, the legacy political system is very much like cable in this instance, and Bitcoin is like people doing their own thing on YouTube channels. You know, and that's. I understand, you know, the kind of political action stuff, but the people who are doing the real heavy lifting with some of these experiments, because I mean, it comes down. I mean, Bitcoin can change the way we even think about political systems and how we organize societies. So that's what I'm really interested in. I'd rather see those people focus their efforts on some of the philosophical sides of things, kind of, you know, developing that side. I just think that's more productive, because wherever the laws go, the people who are going to be doing the heavy lifting and, you know, being, you know, the groundbreakers in this field, they could live anywhere. I mean, they're going to know ahead of time where to move if the U.S. comes down hard on it, and I think their time would be better spent doing that. Yeah, and there's just something that's just so icky to me about even working with these regulators in the first place. Like I said, I understand the diversity of tactics thing. Obviously, people have more experience in that field, but ultimately, I think anytime you try to work with a system that's so entrenched in keeping its own power alive, you're going to lose playing their own game. You have to work outside of it.
The last thing, the point I want to make is it's not my favorite strategy at all, and it's not the one I personally choose to use on almost, you know, every basis. But I do see a role if it's going to make a template for action and make it much more easy for people to opt in and act. And whether or not they're typically politically active is not important. The important part is how easy is it for them to sign their name on on something that's loud. Getting loud is good, and if you can get loud in all these arenas, that's great. And if she feels she has expertise to rally enough, insider support or whatever game she knows how to play there, great. And then if there's no template for action, if they produce nothing that's easy for all of us to jump on board and monkey pile, then it's kind of a waste. And maybe, change from within is not the goal, though. It's not like, I don't think why I would sign anything if they created some template. It would not be because I seek change from within. It would be to be loud so that more people feel more confident to join us.
And going back to Christoph's point, there is a large media contention or whatever in D.C. So she might be able to reach the media through her activism in D.C., which is
well, she wrote for Forbes and stuff
well,
too.
it's different than the L.A. media. Or it's different from the New York media. There's a definite D.C. media that covers politics that she'll presumably be getting her work out to. So.
Yeah, but they're all parrots on the shoulders of pirates. So I don't.
Yeah, sorry guys, but you're basically playing by their rules, and the rules are rigged. The game isn't there to make this strategy that you're discussing work. Sorry, I've been a bit quiet, but the whole way I've just been shouting that in my head.
Well, you're lucky.
It's not meant to work for us.
To tax this, for the moment.
You don't have to go through them at all. You don't have to. You just take direct action. Don't
Yes.
even go through them.
Yeah.
There's people like you and there's all of us are very motivated, and so we know how to take direct action, and I think that's why all of us are good at being like kind of making other people more confident, and that's what's needed. There aren't that many people who have as much gusto all the time, and some of them are capable of doing so, and seeing an easy way to gain some early confidence and some more courage to build momentum to do more self-starting action. I want to see that too, and I don't prefer the route of Washington whatsoever. I prefer the route above, over, underneath, around, in within, without, whatever, that's better. But you can encourage people who first think of acting with the state level. They're like, oh, I'm going to write my congressman, I'm going to vote, and you can give them a way of seeing that process is defunct by, again, making it easier for them to be proactive, and then they can quickly learn what we've all learned, which is change from within is not possible, and it's just about rallying a group of critical mass to opt out and exit, and
Well, and if someone wants to come up with a campaign, mail campaign, then she can come up with the website and the template. It will cost her a couple $100 or whatever, and she can take it out of her own pocket if she thinks that's a good approach. But I'm offended by the idea that she would ask people to put their funds into her project, appealing to the government that's going to be ultimately undermined by this new digital currency, instead of putting their funds into more efforts that I think have much better potential. That would be my criticism here. Not that if she wants to do that, then go on her own path. That's fine to me. Just don't ask for people's money for that.
And there's no easy way to go about this either. Even if you were to put together a list and make it easy for people, I don't know, like making something easier and convenient for something like that's going to be ineffective anyway. I don't know, like I just can't get behind that, and I don't think the politics is the easy route at all. I don't think activism in general is easy. There's nothing easy about real activism, whether you're inside the system or outside the system. If you're going to be busting your ass and stressing yourself out anyway, you might as well be doing it, not working with these really horrible, morally bankrupt people, as far as I'm concerned. And even like saying, okay, we'll sign this letter and to put pressure on it, the easy kind of activism is usually not worth doing. In my experience, it doesn't get results, and I think political activism, not to down any of my friends in political activism, but I really think that is kind of the easy, safe route to take, but easy routes tend to be less effective.
All right, moving on, we got just a couple more questions. Silverminer writes, can the powers that be kill Ethereum before it gets off the ground if they find it threatening, i.e. strangle it in the crib? And I think that's part of what the crowdsource sale does to Ethereum, is that now it's much harder to kill. Now it's like $4 million worth of company to kill, whereas before they kind of had nothing. What do you guys think?
Or does it mean that the $4 million of support for this idea that's represented by Ethereum is now sitting in a single account tied to a company that's registered in Switzerland and so forth? I mean, this really goes back to the idea of, do you launch a currency as a Satoshi, or do you launch it as a Vitalik? Clearly, the Satoshi model has worked out. The Vitalik model at times has not worked out. I mean, it didn't work out for the Coinye people, obviously. Now, their currency is a lot less serious and momentous than Ethereum is, but that doesn't necessarily count towards the favor of Ethereum being launched before it is censored.
Yeah, I wonder who has the private keys to that wallet. I'm going to find out.
It is a multi-sig wallet, we can say that for sure.
There was some rumors and speculation that the Bitcoin price drop was due to a large sell of the Ethereum Bitcoins. I don't know any.
I heard that, but I don't understand that theory because
yeah, I think that's ridiculous.
They haven't spent any of the funds that they've received at their fixed Bitcoin address, so they would have had to say like, oh well, now we have a bunch in this address, so we're going to spend it from a bunch of other Bitcoins that we had. I'm not sure that there's evidence of that, but
it could just be market sentiment as well with this kind of, there's a belief that Ethereum might be the Bitcoin and Bitcoin might be MySpace, but no one really knows that. It's a lot of speculation.
Yeah, I mean, I was trying not to say this because I really do believe in the project and I'm going to be supporting it however I can. Once they have a product, I'll pay some amount to play with it. But I do think that doing the crowd sale before they have a product is a sign of weakness in the project in a way, kind of maybe. And I don't know anything, but this maybe is my thought. And this might having the money raised makes it easier to kill, not harder to kill. And it's just interesting that it would go down this way, just kind of surprise crowd sale before more developments happen. So they do have a good community around this project. They do have lots of brain power on this project. But again, it's not something that gave me all that much confidence when I saw the surprise crowd sale and how quickly everybody piled on.
I do like, one thing I do like about this model, though, is like, let's say they had just done crowdfunding or whatever, and they still have a bunch of Bitcoin sitting around. At least this way, it's something extra that they can give to their backers in a sense, right? Like, not only will they get the fact that Ethereum will eventually work, probably, but also they can get some extra value out of like speculating on these ethers. So even if ethers drop to 1% of their current value, that's still 1% more than they would have if they were simply donating the money. And I think that's nice, and I'm certainly sympathetic. As one of the not yet Bitcoin rich, I can certainly sympathize with the idea that you need some money to pay your damn bills while you're working on this stuff. Like it's not that easy to just snap your fingers and make Bitcoins appear into your accounts.
It would be nice if we could have a crowd sale and raise $4.2 million in a couple of days. That'd be nice. Let's move on to the last question. This is a pretty good question. It's a two-parter. He says, who is prepared to move to the first company? Who is prepared to move to the first country that adopts Bitcoin as its primary currency? Take a guess. Which country might it be? Germany? I'll just go down the line. Chris, are you ready to move?
Hawaii. It's going to secede from the Union. It's going to become its own country. It's nice and hot there. And yeah, I'm just going to go there and I'm going to be watching World War III. The Cold War between the West and Russia, I'm just going to be watching that on TV. And sorry to all the people that were left behind, but what are you shaking your heads for?
Hawaii's a military base. It's a military.
No, it's going to secede from the Union. It's going to become.
Basically, what's going to happen after the thing is they're going to be like, round up all the tourists, and now this is a military base because it's strategic significance. It's why they attacked it in Pearl Harbor. Like it has the oil there.
Nothing but love bombs are going to be in Hawaii, in my vision.
But they rely a lot on imports too, so I don't know that they would be the first.
He's on an island.
Spoiling my fun. Fine, Chile.
Islands are
very nice there. They've got all the seasons. They got hot in the north, cold in the south. You can walk across it in 15 minutes or something stupid.
Plus, right. Inventors of the delicious dish that includes, various meats and beans and so forth. So
yeah, and hardly any kidnappings.
That's great. Megan, are you ready to move?
Am I ready to move? I don't know. Wow, Chile sounds nice, but well, I don't know that I would want to move to any state that says Bitcoin is going to be the official currency, because I'm even for competition with Bitcoin. I know a lot of these other altcoins aren't really. ready for it yet. Like I don't really at the level that Bitcoin is, and of course I want to see Bitcoin adopted on a much broader scale. But I don't like the idea of there being an official, a government declaring an official currency of anything, even if it's something I like. So yeah, I mean, like I plan on moving out of Florida eventually, but I don't know that I would necessarily jump on the first plane out to whoever declares that that their Bitcoin's going to be their national currency.
Christoph Atlas, Bitcointopia for you?
There we go. It wasn't letting me mute for a second. So I like TV shows that are kind of like apocalyptic survival type stuff, like the Walking Dead and all that. There was this really cool show that ended far before it should have called Jericho, where there was some kind of terrible event that happened. And one of the things that happened as a result in the United States, like people had like power outages for months and stuff like that. Texas like seceded from the Union, and so I rather like the idea that Texas would like secede from the Union. They would like keep their part of the military and be like, sorry, you can't have it back. If you want to come get it, you can come try. And one day I'll be living in the Lone Star State using cryptocurrencies, but we'll see.
Will Pangman.
I am ready to move. Yeah, I don't know if I'll be moving to any country that wants to have an official currency as a cryptocurrency, but there are lots of countries that are friendly to cryptocurrency that I'm totally happy to move to. So yeah, I'm very mobile right now. Don't know where we'll be ending up. Maybe New Hampshire, maybe still in Florida, maybe in the Lone Star State with Christoph. Maybe in California when it turns into 5 states or 6 states or whatever they're going to do, and that'll be a fun experiment if that happens. But I like the thought of the future being more decentralized and 7 billion states. That would be cool.
Well, my question for you is, are you as mobile as Jason King? Because that guy ran across the United States.
I am not that mobile. I don't know if anyone's that mobile. I have a toddler and a dog weighing me down, so I know Jason did it with a family too. That is just a feat and a half.
He had children and a dog and a wife.
His Doge must have been really tired by the end of it.
And he seems to be at every Bitcoin convention too. He's really traveling. He's really getting around.
He had some energy in DC. I got to play with crypto a bit, and he's very bitey.
It's a Doge, isn't it?
Yeah. It's a shib. Yeah.
Don't tell anyone this, but I suspect that Jason may have been cheating because he would be like running in like California one day and then he'd be in like Chicago the next day. There's no way that he ran that fast. Come on, Jason, be honest.
He did take a couple days break in April. I think it was in Texas or West Texas at the time, and he was in Toronto. I saw him there. But yeah, dude ran 5,000 kilometers. Like, holy crap.
Part of it, he could have ridden the back of that Doge. It's very rideable. So I'm going to answer the question too. I'm not prepared to move until they ban Bitcoin. For me, it's more of they have to take a negative action on the place where I'm living now to get me to move to some new place that might be better. I agree with the panelists. If Bitcoin's the official currency, it sounds a little shady, a little suspicious. Maybe they want to draw in a bunch of rich Bitcoiners and then all of a sudden declare that you can't own Bitcoin here. A bit of a honeypot. Not that that would matter much for me. They'd not get that much. But yeah, it's just very unclear yet. And especially if you're going to move into a new country and be all like Mr. Bitcoin and you're kind of putting a big sign on yourself. So I think it's going to go the other way where Bitcoin gets accepted everywhere and it just kind of bubbles up from the underground out of all these countries, and then pretty soon we can go wherever we want and it doesn't much matter. So.
And it's a feature that you can choose Bitcoin. It's completely voluntary. No one's forcing you to use it. So.
And you can choose Dogecoin or Litecoin.
And Dogecoin and
any of the other coins. So. Moving on to predictions or story of the week. Chris Ellis, are you ready with a prediction or a story of the week?
I thought we did the story of the week.
No, we're down to questions. That was just grab bag because there's too many news stories now. There's so many news stories. Like, we can't cover them all. Like, it's impossible. Like,
well, come back to me.
All right. It's Megan Lords. Somebody said they're ready on the chat. It says right here, I have a prediction.
Yeah, whoever had that skip, I don't know. I don't know what I got nothing.
Christoph, prediction or story of the week? Maybe just a plug. Who cares?
Let's see. I just wanted to say to the Darkcoin community, I'm doing this code review for them for the dark send. It's like, yeah, all of Darkcoin is open source except for like the software that handles their coin join transactions called DarkSend. And their developer reached out to me a little while ago and said, hey, would you like to kind of do a preview of the code? We're not going to put it out yet, but we'd love to have some of them take a look at it. And so I volunteered to do that. And I asked people, would you send me a few dark coins to help me fund this project so I can spend a little bit more time on it rather than just the odd hour here and there. And people were hugely, hugely supportive and generous with that whole project. So I'm really appreciative of everyone's generosity on that. I just received some code. It's not the final code for the next release candidate, but I get some preview code from Evan for DarkSend today, so I'll be starting that project pretty shortly and figuring out what's the best way to kind of report the results to the community, because I want to be as accountable to the community as possible for this project. So I just really wanted to thank everyone for their support on that, and I'll let them know that I'll be working very hard on it.
Will Pengman.
That's great news, Christoph. I'm really glad to hear that they reached out to you and they've chosen you to do that, and they chose the right guy for sure. So that'll be awesome when those results come out. I'll be interested. My prediction is that the World Crypto Network will have a DAO up and running before Ethereum has its first. And that's not to say I don't believe in the project. I root for Ethereum. I totally love the white paper. Vitalik, I trust the leadership all around that team. So yeah, go Ethereum, but I do think we're going to beat them to the DAO game.
Chris Ellis, are you ready?
Yeah, so this is Hashwash. This is where I watch the hash rate of Bitcoin. I tend to follow it a couple of times a day, and I like to see what's going on. As you can see, we had a massive drop-off for 148 petahashes, crashing all the way down to the previous low that we had in the last difficulty period, where it only went up by 3%. I mean, look, you can actually see just how distinguishable that last difficulty adjustment that we had 2 weeks ago. So the latest difficulty adjustment that happened just as we were coming on air was only 8%. But look at that drop in the hash rate. As a percentage of the overall hash rate, I believe that's one of the biggest drops we've ever had, which to me is really, really suspect. Now, I've invited somebody from Sexio to do an interview with us. I have some questions. In particular, I want to know what all of this KYC features that they've started to install. I do have a Sexio account that I've been playing around with since I started reporting on it. I thought I'd try and use it, and now I'm being told that I can't change my email address unless I provide personally identifiable information like my name and address. It doesn't say that I have to upload documents, although it does keep pestering me everywhere on the site to do that so that I can trade in dollars and gigahash. So I'm a little bit worried that now the largest Bitcoin mining pool is now asking for people's government ID. I find that really, really, really disturbing. And so yeah, I would like to get someone on the show from Sexio to talk about it. And I'm slightly bothered, and also maybe someone can tell me. I was trying to look for a way of setting up an email address without giving away any personal information. And I have to say, apart from Hushmail, which is terrible because it doesn't take Bitcoin, only takes fiat. You have to do it with your credit card, so that's right out. All these other places like Gmail now forces you to give your mobile phone number, so it'd be really, really good. Okay, we've had a suggestion, Startmail, so I'll go check that out. But yeah, if you've got your favorite anonymous email company, I'd like to know about that before Proton Mail comes out, because those guys in Switzerland still haven't released their product yet. So send me your ideas.
Very good. And now a prediction. Jackson Palmer is right about one thing. 6 months is an eternity in crypto. After the 45 wait for regulation period is over, who knows what Bitcoin will look like? Nothing moves faster than Bitcoin these days, except Bitcoin. we're out of time.
Hey, wait a
Until
second.
next time.
I have a story of the week. Hold up.
Megan
Hold
got
up.
one? All right.
Okay. Yeah, so I totally had a brain fart. Guys, I'm launching my own show on the World Crypto Network next week on Wednesday. It will be called Crypto Combos. I'll pretty much be doing kind of the interviews I've been doing, maybe a little bit longer and more in depth. So definitely check that out. My first guest is going to be Jeffrey Tucker. So a lot of libertarians and anarchists are familiar with his work. He's very, very enthusiastic about Bitcoin and just has really positive energy. Will Pangman will be on there too the following week, and I'll be interviewing Chris and probably the other panelists again at some point too. So check those out. It's going to be a weekly show every Wednesday at 6 o'clock Central Time.
Very cool. Check it out on the worldcryptonetwork.com. But we're out of time. Until next time. Bye-bye.